Hi everyone, it's Shem. Here's another video, this time about how to install an aftermarket muffler onto a Honda CRF 250L. I'm also planning to do a decibel level test to compare the stock muffler versus the FMF Q4 muffler. The microphone, or rather the decibel meter, is placed 1 meter away from the muffler. It might not be the most accurate device, however we're comparing it in the same room. The distance will be always the same between the exhaust and the meter, so the difference between two measurements should be pretty accurate, and it will give us a good indication of how much louder the FMF exhaust might actually be. As you might know if you have watched any of my previous videos, I'd like to start by giving you the reasons why I decided to change the muffler and why I decided to use this particular one. But if you cannot be bothered to watch that and you're interested only in how to fit it or the volume difference, just use the shortcuts in the description down below the video and you can jump to the section that you are actually interested in. Let's start with reasons why. I would imagine that a lot of CRF 250L owners might want to change the stock muffler because of its sound. I'm not one of them. I actually like the sound of it, I don't mind it whatsoever, and I think it's quiet enough for me to use when I go green laning. Because I live in the United Kingdom, the only places when I can legally go off-roading are green lanes, and I have to share them with other users. So I might come across mountain bikers, I might come across walkers, so I don't want the exhaust to be too loud. I want it to be as quiet as possible, and the stock exhaust is perfect for that. So that's not the reason why I decided to change it. The only reason why I decided to change it, it's weight. I've been going through a little bit of process of weight reduction, so I'm trying to replace the parts, stock parts, with lighter parts, and I'm trying to unbolt things that can be unbolted without compromising the bike. And one of the biggest differences in weight that you can make is by replacing the stock muffler with something lighter. I think the stock muffler is quite heavy. We'll pull the weight scale once the muffler is removed and check the difference between this one and the FMF one, but from what I've read on the internet, the difference is significant, and the weight is quite high up, so obviously the higher the weight, the worse it is for the center of gravity. So by reducing weight over here, you can make fair bit of difference. So that's the only reason why I decided to change it. There are two reasons why I decided to go for FMF and not some other brand. The first reason is that little mounting point in here, which allows me to mount the bracket that comes with the exhaust, which in turns allows me to use the stock heat shield. And I quite like the idea of it being there because with my soft luggage it will prevent it from getting burned. But obviously there are other options that you could use for that purpose. You could fabricate a heat shield from something else with other exhaust systems, or you could fabricate a mounting point for this. So FMF doesn't have exclusivity for mounting points, but it's the most convenient way of getting one without having to faff about with things. The second reason is the fact that I bought it second hand for a really good price. If I was to buy it new, I don't think I would be so keen on it just because of this mounting point. I think that they are new about 350 to 380 pounds in the United Kingdom, so it's fair bit of money for a muffler. Especially when you consider that you could get a muffler by a UK business called Delcavage, which looks, it might have a slightly different finish to it, but they do multiple versions and they do a lot of different mufflers, and you can get it for about less than half of that price. So I think you can pick them up between 140 to 200 pounds for like a titanium muffler. So, there are other options on the market, and if you're not bothered about attaching the stock heat shield, you might well consider this, because the weight reduction will be the same. Both the Delcavage, the FMF, and Yoshimura, they are all going to be lighter than the stock muffler. There are probably some other companies, I've seen some Italian companies which I don't even remember the names of, that you could get, and they are probably you know, equally good. But for me, again, like I said, it was the fact that it's got that mounting point here, and I can use the stock heat shield, as well as I purchased it for a really good price second hand. So yeah, these are the reasons why. Let's go to the actual fitting video. We're going to start the installation by removing the stock muffler. So we need to start with the heat shield. So those two Allen head bolts here, one over here and one over here. Then we're gonna just loosen up, don't remove it, just loosen up the bolt that holds the muffler against the frame. And then we're gonna loosen up the clamp that clamps two pipes together. And then we're gonna remove that bolt. So once this bolt is removed, the only thing that's holding exhaust in place is that clamp over here, which is now loosened up, and this bolt over here. So we're gonna remove that bolt and navigate the exhaust out of this clamp. Because it's been loosened up, we should be able to just slide it out. You might need to spray some WD-40 there, it might be stuck, but you know, once this bolt is removed, this is loosened up, and this bolt is removed, you should be able to just pull it out, hopefully without too much trouble. Muffler is off the bike now, so the next step is for us to detach that plastic heat shield from the heat shield assembly, and by the look of it, it's held by 4 Phillips head screws. So we're gonna go ahead and remove those 4 screws. Stock exhaust on the weight scale, just by itself, because my weight scale maxes out at 5 kilograms, so it's 4,980 grams, so nearly 5 kilos. So let me take that off now. We are also going to put the plastic heat shield, which I'm not going to reuse, so that's 305 grams, which in total with the exhaust or the muffler gives us about 5.2, 5.3 kilograms. And then let's put the FMF on. So I can tell that's significantly lighter just by lifting it. Okay, let's just balance it. Okay, so we've got 2,471 grams. So it's 2.5 kilos, half of the stock muffler. And then we also have to include the bracket, because I'm gonna be reusing that, and that's 140 grams. So all in all, you're looking about 2.6 kilograms saving on it. You will see the exact figures on the screen. I did not check the weight of that because I'm gonna be reusing it, so it's kind of weight neutral for me. So all in all, pretty big saving. The next thing that we need to do is to attach this metal bracket that came with an FMF exhaust to the plastic heat shield. So we're gonna use the same Phillips screws for that. We are now ready to install the FMF exhaust on the bike, but before we do that, the next thing we need to do is to clean that stock pipe with a bit of a degreaser to make sure that there is no residue on it or no old sort of sealing paste or anything like this. And the reason for that is that we are going to be applying the high temperature resistant silicone around the perimeter of that, just to provide additional seal. So if you look at the FMF pipe, it doesn't come with anything to clamp it. So to seal it properly between that and the pipe that comes from the engine, you need to apply silicone, and it needs to adhere properly to the surface. This is why we are degreasing it. Actually, you can probably degrease that and this just to be on the safe side. So that's the step number 1. Once this is degreased and you are ready to install the muffler, you will have to first apply a little bit of silicone around the perimeter of that, and I would advise to do it probably somewhere halfway through the pipe. Don't try to apply it on the inside of that, because what usually happens is when you put the pipe in, all of the silicone gets pushed and then it's inside your exhaust, and that's the last thing that you want. The silicone only needs to be between these two surfaces that connect with each other. So the idea is you apply it over here and then it doesn't get pushed inside the exhaust. So that's step number 1. When you have silicone there, we're then gonna navigate the muffler onto that pipe. So the idea is to kind of flip it towards you, kind of turn it and twist it, slide it on the pipe, and once you are happy with it, put it in the appropriate position and insert that bolt that came with the muffler from behind. So the FMF muffler will be just hanging on that bolt, okay? This is just to keep it in place for now. Then the next thing you want to do is to take the stock bolt, which we've removed from that mounting position, put a drop of Loctite in there and just thread it in. It doesn't have to be tight. At this stage we just want to provide additional security. So don't tighten it yet, just put a drop of Loctite and thread it in so it's in place, okay? So you have that bolt in place. This bolt is kind of the exhaust is, or the muffler is hanging on that bolt. So the next thing you want to do is take that heat shield that we've assembled and put that on it. So obviously it's gonna be hanging on that bolt as well, but it's also gonna be mounted through that hole to the mounting point on the exhaust over here. So you'll have to take the washer and the Allen head bolt that got supplied with the exhaust, navigate it through that hole and attach the heat shield to the muffler. And this is the stage where you need to actually position it correctly. So before you tighten it, make sure that the gaps are even and then it's in the position that you are happy with and it doesn't touch the exhaust and so on. So once you're happy with the position, we tighten that bolt through the hole over here, and then we're ready to tighten the bolts that hold the exhaust. So we're gonna start by doing them gently, so a little first one a little tighter and the other one a little tighter, all the time making sure that exhaust is in the correct position, it's not twisted in a funny angle or something like this. So just bear that in mind all the time. And once you're happy with the final position, we will then tighten both bolts to 32 Newton meters. And when I say both bolts, I mean obviously this is gonna be the bolt that comes through here and it threads onto the exhaust mount, whereas at the top, because we put the bolt from behind, we're gonna be tightening the nuts of this side. So both I would torque up to 32 Newton meters. Manual says 32 for this mounting bolt. It doesn't say anything for this one, but it's the same thread size, so I don't see why we shouldn't use the same torque setting. Also, remember to put a drop of Loctite in there, because when I got the bike new and I've been going off-road, I've already lost the stock nut that came with the exhaust. That was completely loose and the exhaust was rattling. So, lesson learned, put Loctite wherever you can, just to prevent bolts from getting loose while you're off-roading. So let's crack on with it. I was slightly concerned because despite my best efforts, I cannot really position this any closer to close that gap. I think the stock exhaust, when the stock exhaust was in place, that gap was slightly smaller, but it might be because that heat shield had a plastic underneath which pushed it up, quite possibly. But you know, it doesn't look as neat as the stock exhaust, but I've checked the mounting and everything, and I don't see what I could have done differently. It seems to be mounted as per the manufacturer's specification, so I guess it is what it is. You know, the gap here will have to remain slightly bigger. So I'm just gonna continue putting the nut on here, a drop of Loctite. Actually, that's a nylon nut, so I don't need a Loctite. But yeah, I'm just gonna torque everything up. Alright, we obviously don't have torque settings for this little bolt here, but I've just used 6 Nm, so you've got a reference, and like I mentioned, 32 Nm for all the other bolts. And out of different positions where you could have that plastic, well, there aren't that many, you could either slide it backwards or forward. I decided to have it closer to the front just to minimize that gap, but yeah, let's wait until tomorrow. Here we are, 24 hours later. Silicone is dry now. I've cleaned it up a little bit yesterday before finishing off, so it's a little neater than it was. We can now commence the loudness test. Right, we have our SPL meter ready. I've set it to dBA, which is the weighting that's the closest approximation of human hearing. And then we've got it slow, so it will display the numbers in a slightly smoother way. And then we've got it in high range, which covers the range between 60 to 130 decibels. So that's all ready. And the first measurement I'm gonna do will be the stock exhaust. The engine is not warmed up, so when it idles it will be about 2000 revs, and then I'm gonna take it to 6000 revs and keep it there, so you will see it on the screen, and then I will repeat the very same measurement using the FMF exhaust, and we'll be able to compare the difference. Right, so these are the results of the comparison that we've just done, and as you can see, at 2000 RPM the stock exhaust outputs 76.8 decibels, at least in the environment that I am in, which is kind of closed garage. At 6000 RPM it's 87.4, and you can see the figures here for the FMF exhaust. Roughly speaking, decibel scale, 10 decibels is approximately to human ear perception twice as loud. 6 decibels, it's about 1.5 times as loud, so we're oscillating around 6 decibels roughly speaking. So you could say that's you know, to ear perception, the FMF exhaust is about 1.5 times louder than the stock exhaust. So you know, it doesn't sound too bad in the garage. I can tell that it's louder than the stock, but I'm gonna have to try it out when I go for a ride. So all in all, pretty happy with everything, especially with the weight saving that I gained from installing that exhaust. And yes, if you're after weight saving, I would definitely recommend that as one of the modifications to achieve that. Thanks for watching. Any questions, comments, write them down in the comment section below the video, and I'll try to do my best to help. See you in the next video.